Hello, everyone. Ooh, and welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast, bringing you the latest and greatest geeky news of the week. So unfortunately, Courtney got hit with a a pretty serious case of food poisoning, like right before filming. So she won't be joining us for this episode. So this is going to be a quick episode. And as part of this, we're just gonna I'm gonna talk about some stuff that's going on, like what is the status of say the other 8-Bit Adventures podcast properties, comics and stuff like that. So that's what it's gonna be. A little bit of a shorter episode. Not a whole lot of big news this week. I mean, it is like still post E3, so everybody's kind of done their stuff for like the quarter. But we've got a couple of things that are coming. So I'm not going to keep you waiting, and we'll get right into that. All right. So first up, Cyberpunk 2077 is now finally back on the PlayStation Store. It does have a performance warning, and that recommends against buying it for the PS4, and tells you, like, that this is much better suited for the PS4 Pro or PS5. So if you have a PS4 that's not the Pro version, Sony is flat out telling you, like, don't buy this game. So there's that. That the saga continues for Cyberpunk 2077. Square Enix is working with Cybergroup Studios to develop an animated series based on Final Fantasy IX. So fans of that game and that story should be on the lookout for that. I can't remember where Cybergroup Studios is based out of. But basing a story on that. In Activision Blizzard news, shareholders voted by a narrow margin to increase CEO Bobby Kotick's pay, despite several rounds of layoffs across the company. This was apparently a very contentious vote that just narrowly won. And it seems like there are certain investment groups that are part of Activision Blizzard's investment backers, I guess, that are unhappy about this, it seems. And they've pointed out that they have something called like say for pay, I think, or pay for say, where typically you see votes to increase CEO pay under that model very rarely occur below 70-75%. And this was like 54, which is it goes to show that, like, the stuff's not well received. Sony apparently has come out and made a statement that it wants to now support and encourage crossplay, and that they are actively working to make that a feature now on their system. So definitely a change of tune, likely due to pressure from both developers and audiences due to previous games, probably following in the footsteps of Fortnite, where they, Epic applied their pressure and got Sony to do crossplay, since previously they weren't doing it with anybody. And finally, for The Legend of Vox Machina, Phil Bourassa, known for character designs in various DC superhero animated series and film projects, has been tapped to lead character designs for the show, and they have actually finalized the character designs for the animated series. They were working with like some work in progress character concepts before. Those have been all finalized. The cast is super pumped to have Phil signed on. Many of them have worked with him before and are big fans of his work. They all seem to really love the concepts and the designs he has come up with for their characters, and they had extensive amounts of input as to what to emphasize, what they should look like. So they're all very excited about that. That project is still listed as coming soon. So there is no definitive release date yet for it. And that's it. That's what I got for the quickfire news this week. So we're gonna switch gears a little bit and for our deep dive, talk about just other 8-bit adventures projects. Since again, we didn't really have a big topic planned for this evening, so we're gonna dive right into that. So I actually wanted to bring this up because it has been quite some time since there's been an update on some of the other projects that we do. So first up, Berkshire Bites, which is a very small sort of short form podcast that my wife and I do about food here in Berkshire County. The plan for that is we do want to bring it back after being on a long hiatus due to COVID and baby. But we're thinking we might do it in like a season format. So what it'll be is we will record a bunch of episodes and then release it sequentially each week as a season. But this way it'll also give us some time to figure out sort of what's still open and versus what is closed. And it kind of takes pressure off of like having to like every other week, like, well, we have to go somewhere in order to do this. So we're gonna spread it out. So it may be some time before those episodes appear. But we just wanted to make everyone aware. That is what the plan is. So it may still be some time before that podcast comes back, but we are planning things and we do have some ideas kicking about for it. Tales of Jamora. So I have talked about a little bit of Tales of Jamora before. So the plan is we are going to pick it back up with a new campaign. We're still kind of trying to figure things out. We have a number of sort of real life issues that kind of need to be tackled before we can really bring the podcast and the stream back. And once we have those figured out, we'll have a better idea. Some of the things that we've been kicking around are sort of in the same vein and what several shows have been doing recently is pre-recording episodes, potentially even pre-recording a whole season and releasing those episodes sequentially as well, versus doing it live. But we would, essentially broadcast the episode live. It would be pre-recorded. So for people that have been following Critical Role, that's what they've been doing. And it seems to have worked out pretty well. There are just some logistical hurdles that we have to get through to figure stuff out before we do that. But it will come back with a new campaign. I'm pretty sure the cast is going to stay the same, depending on people's schedules. So, I don't have any. I'm not anticipating any casting changes, but if something should change, we'll make an announcement on that. So you may have seen on social media, there's been a couple more pieces of art that have been getting put up. So on Fridays, I'm going to be posting fan art to my Instagram and to Facebook. So just getting more artwork out there. Comics are still going to go up every Monday and every Sunday for patrons. The plan is to try and do another sort of one-off, essentially do like a spin-off of the Speedy and Monty comics, or just continuing those on Tuesdays. And the thought is to make them public. That is something I would love to get feedback from patrons on, because previously it has been a patron exclusive. So I don't want to cheapen the sort of patron experience. But at the same time, it's, comics about animals are very popular. And we're still trying to build an audience here. So, all right. So, longtime supporter Driz says, sounds good for Jamora. I'm not sure live chat during live D&D offers a benefit over pre-recorded like you're thinking. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is while we're playing, we're not able to respond to chat because there's enough going on. And typically when we're streaming from the TV station, the internet's not great. So I'm often not able to have chat pulled up on my phone because essentially you have to load the stream in order to view chat. So that would mean essentially like watching the stream myself, but having it muted in order to monitor chat while also, DMing a game and keeping track of all the pieces that are running about. This way, we would have the thought is potentially having a whole season in the bag ready to go, potentially with editing and effects afterward. Maybe taking a cue from shows like Dimension 20 and some of the other works by College Humor by the Dimension 20 brand, where they put a lot of After Effects and stuff, potentially, or it, just having just a straight up episode, but being able to fix any audio issues or weird cuts. Also, not having to worry about if the stream cuts out or if there's an issue with the device. Might we be able to speedy Monty on TikTok? Yeah, I mean, it's so the thing is with Monty, it's all based on whether he is cooperative, and many times he's not. So, it's Monty's old, Monty's stubborn. Monty doesn't really like me, so it's getting him to do things is that. It's also, even doing something like a quick 15-second or 60-second video on TikTok, you still kind of have to come up with either a script or a pseudo script, and think about what shots you want to do. It's a big challenge in filmmaking, basically. So what I've been doing thus far is just DM tips on my TikTok channel, because there's a lot less complexities that have to go into that, since it's there are no cuts, there are no transitions. It's really focusing on one topic and kind of getting through that. But even then, a minute it's tough. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm still learning TikTok. I'm not super familiar with the platform. I only joined a couple weeks ago, basically. And so having to figure out, how to do jump cuts and transitions and stuff like that. Because the other option is, shooting it all as if it were a video, but with my phone, and then having to upload that stuff to my computer and edit it in Premiere, and then re-uploading it back to my phone to re-upload to TikTok. And Speedy, I mean, Speedy doesn't do much because he's a Beanie Baby. So that's the thing. And I mean, Speedy's like Chewbacca. He has one line of dialogue, and that's intended to convey what he's trying to say, and everybody else understands it. So, yeah, it's so I don't know. Definitely, I'd like to do very much. Yeah, that's kind of the same vibe we got going with Speedy. So I mean, technically Groot predates Speedy in comic form by 20 years. However, this thing with Speedy predates the film version of Groot by quite some time. Probably 10 years or so. I can't remember when Guardians 1 came out. where I voice out the panels. I mean, possibly. That is potentially something I might do. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know how compelling that would be because those comics are all single panel comics. So it's something about that. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out because the issue is I have a tendency to do too many things, and the concern becomes if you try and do too many things with your TikTok, you spread yourself out. And it becomes difficult to get an audience there. Like, I mean, as with any social media, like it's all about finding a niche and an audience within that niche and building that up. So, I mean, part of the thought is, bringing Monty in to talk about D&D stuff from Sir Muntz's perspective, since Sir Muntz is based on Monty. Sorry, it's been very, very hot here. And both my wife and I were bad about hydrating today, so. But yeah, it's also, I'm going to be very frank. It has been a tough couple of months. So I have a lot of family stuff going on right now. So, what I have been able to do is kind of at my limit. So even if it's just something as simple as like a quick DM tips to talk about, like the latest one was just mentioning how gritty D&D tends to benefit martial characters, because like even though you have less hit points, martial characters are able to regain hit points much more quickly using short rests. And like just that alone took a lot of effort to get done. And I mean, it's also, I'm still working a full-time job on top of this, and a very frustrating one, to be frank. So, yeah, and I mean, ultimately, it's why I stopped doing sort of long-form stories with the 8-Bit Adventures comic, too, in favor of going back to doing sort of one-off cartoon strips, is to take pressure off of myself. So, that's just kind of the thoughts on that. And still, it's trying to learn the format, and hoping that the format will stick around. We're already kind of seeing, like with both Twitch and TikTok a little bit, is like a looming adpocalypse. On the Twitch side, because of a lot of certain stream types. And I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole thing. But with TikTok, is they set up this creators fund, and apparently it's paying out far less than like YouTube does with advertising, which is, to be perfectly honest, quite sad. Since YouTube is notorious for not supporting smaller channels. So, but yeah, the plan is ultimately, we would eventually really like to bring back Tales of Jamora. It is going to keep the name, but it's going to have a much different vibe. It'll be sort of using a revised Jamora setting, so that it'll be more basically 80s than sort of the pirate fantasy that you see a lot in like D&D, at least in D&D shows. And ultimately, so part of the other thing is as far as my capacity is because I'm also working on a first draft of a Jamora setting guide, which is a big task in and of itself. But also trying to finally get 8-Bit Adventures Chapter 1 put into print. And so I'm still in the process of coloring 100 comics. Sorry, I apologize. 100 comic strips that then have to be paginated and then uploaded to, I'm going to be using Lulu to be able to print off one-off books. Because, and I'm not trying to be down on myself, but ultimately I don't know if there's enough audience to run like a Kickstarter to fund, a run of like 1,000 books or something that you typically would need to be able to sell stuff at cost or pretty, pretty close to what you would be able to sell it for at a bookstore. And then that also begs the issue of like, I would have probably likely hundreds of books just sitting around in my house where I don't have room. So trying to get those, both of those, which the goal is to get them ready, like both first draft for Jamora and then finalized, like fully finalized 8-Bit Adventures Chapter 1 by the end of the year. So ultimately my focus on those and like everything else, putting out a comic each week is a big focus, getting streams done is a big focus. So like, TikTok and the other stuff is kind of extra and just intended to try and garner interest from a wider audience. And ultimately to bring people back to 8bitadventures.com. Because, I feel like sooner or later, we may be past the point where social media, like we may be at a point where social media may be considered too big to fail, quote unquote. But I mean, I still believe that there's value in having a standalone website. So the point is to try and draw people to that. Nice, Driz. Thanks. Which brings me to my other thing is I'm also trying to do some freelance design on the side, and do that just sort of as a backup career option. So there's that too. It's ultimately I have to weigh what I spend my free time on, because time is limited. Time becomes very limited when you're a parent. And when I'm trying to dance around stuff because I don't want to bring too much sort of real life drama into things. Because it also, day job stuff. But ultimately, looking into other career paths, that also, requires, that has an opportunity cost to it, is basically what I'm trying to say. So there's costs to doing everything. And so it often becomes like, what am I able to do with the time and energy that I have available? So. This is also why, for example, that like I don't typically start streaming until 9 p.m. Eastern time for like all of the game streams, is because that's kind of the time availability. So, yeah, that's kind of an overall synopsis of what's going on with 8-Bit Adventures. So to recap real quick, because I don't want to drag this out too long. Berkshire Bites is we're gonna do it in a season format. So we're gonna, we are going to continue with it. It is gonna come back at some point. But my wife and I are gonna kind of go at our own pace. We're not gonna rush it. And, we might do like 10 places and then release like a 10 episode season and do it like every week. And then take some time off to recoup and do that. We're still going to keep the goal of like not trying to repeat places. But there may also be a learning curve as to what's still open. Tales of Jamora, we don't have a timetable. We have to sort out some very large real life issues first. But it will be a new campaign, new characters, revised setting, with a new vibe. And the goal is to utilize both Sirenscape and stream safe music. So looking into using a lot of like Game Chops music, because that is stream safe, and they do have a lot of like lo-fi synthwave covers. So a lot of video game covers that are both lo-fi and synthwave. So, and I think that'll mesh with the vibe that we got going on. Ultimate goal, 8-Bit Adventures Chapter 1 comic book, like physical, actual color comic book, by the end of the year, and a rough draft of a Tales or a Jamora campaign setting guide. That will have player options, will have information about the setting, and potentially some sort of optional rules to do that. Yeah. So I mean, we're not gonna. So we are not going to release any new episodes for the current Tales of Jamora campaign. We're just gonna finish up that story offline. Especially since there's just been stuff that has prevented us from really being able to record at the studio, mostly due to COVID. So. Oh, and yeah, and be sure to look for fan art on Fridays. And if you have any suggestions for fan art, so one of the stipulations I'm going to have is it's got to be something that I like. I'm not going to make so fan art Fridays are really for me. So I mean, people are more than welcome to make suggestions, but ultimately, it's going to be art for me. So currently up, I have it's a little thing of Kirby, and the first one. Gosh, I can't even remember what I did for the first one. Oh, it was Kiri. It was Kiri from Critical Role. So it's just stuff kind of in that vein of just little basically color doodles here and there. So all right. Last up. It's time for Quest Log. So Quest Log is where we talk about what sort of goals we worked on over the course of the week, what sort of geeky goals we worked on over the course of the week, and what sort of geeky goals we want to set for the upcoming week. So I'm going to set one for Courtney, which is to get better. So it kind of I'll set an easy one for Courtney. And I did make a TikTok video this week and color a chapter 1 comic. I'm going to repeat those for next week's goals. I did not do fan art of Link from the new Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. I did I did artwork of Kirby. I wasn't feeling great, and Kirby makes everybody happy. He's a little pink puff ball of joy and gluttony. So, everybody loves Kirby. And Kirby's just like a little comfort food character. So I drew him instead, when I felt a little bit better after drawing him. For this week, I'm gonna work on the Winter Bite page for the Jamora campaign setting. So that should be fun. So Winter Bite is sort of the Arctic, subarctic region in Jamora. Lot and very timely with me playing Subnautica Below Zero on my streams lately. So kind of that same vibe. Lots of snow, lots of ice, lots of water. Not a lot of vegetation. And you have to be resourceful there. You got to make do with lots of, so there's a lot of like scrap welding and a lot of sort of like frontier engineering is what I'll call it. Just really making do with the stuff you have and sort of cobbling things together. So it should be an interesting write up. So that is going to wrap up this episode. As I said, it was going to be a short one. Just the normal banter back and forth. Don't have that. But hopefully Courtney gets better. I know she felt bad about having him miss tonight, but health and safety is of the most importance. And so when someone's not feeling well, we take that seriously. So, as always, if you want to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, you can check out 8-bitadventures.com. If you have any feedback on any of that content, you can reach me at Sean, SEAN, at 8-bitadventures.com. If you want to help support that content, you can subscribe right here on Twitch, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Big shout out and thank you to all of our current patrons. Again, thank you for your support. I know this past year was tough for a lot of people. Every little bit helps. Every little bit means the world to me for supporting this stuff. It is really a big help for, paying for hosting costs for the podcast, the website, and all that stuff. And finally, our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. So if you really like sort of chiptune work, he does a lot of covers of stuff as well as original pieces. So go over there and show him some support. And again, thank you, everyone, for your support. So that's going to wrap things up. So as always, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.